you said that ballroom had helped your professional career. If you could touch on, doing that and how that has helped.
It certainly has. I was a competitive ballroom dancer throughout my 20s. So even though I had technically graduated MIT, because it's not an NCAA sport, that's the National Collegiate Athletic Association, I think. Those are the sports where all the big college sports programs play.
Hmm.
Ballroom is not under that. For ballroom dance teams, we could actually still be on the team as alumni staff or faculty or grad students as opposed to undergrads. So we were a much more open team. And I competed throughout my 20s, not quite as an undergrad or grad student, but my 20s I competed. Now, ballroom dancing. It is a really fun sport. I went over to England a couple times to compete. I went all around the US to compete in different competitions, went to national championships. It's
Wow, yeah.
fun, but it did help me in two ways professionally. First, it expanded my network because I met lots of other people who I may not have met professionally, who were in different careers, different fields, but I got to know them through a common interest. And that's great for expanding your network. Certainly know lots of people in tech, but also get to know people outside of tech because they're going to really diversify your network and bring in different perspectives and even opportunities. The second thing it did, I was not a great public speaker. From the time I was young, I just did a terrible job. I was the kid who hated it, wouldn't make eye contact, was too quiet, just horrible, barely would pass the public speaking parts of school. But I knew I wanted to get better. And I had worked at, but ballroom dancing is what gave me that final push. Because when you're on that ballroom dance floor, you're out there in front of hundreds of people, literally being judged. They're watching me and they are judging me, and I am screwing up over and over again. I made plenty of mistakes and learned, you know what? It's okay. Yep, I screwed up that move. Yep, I made the mistake. Maybe I didn't even make the cut to the next round, and life goes on. In fact, one of the things I love about ballroom dancing, it's such a gentlemanly sport. Every once in a while, a couple may fall. Rare, but it does happen. Someone trips over someone else. When that happens in the ballroom world, the couples nearby will typically stop dancing, help the other couple up, even though they're losing precious time on the floor, and the entire audience will applaud for the couple as they stand back up to say, hey, we're still with you. We support you. Keep going. We've all been there.
Hmm.
And when it comes to public speaking, the number one thing that gives us a challenge is the fact that we're worried about making mistakes. We say, oh my God, what if I'm saying the wrong thing? Or what if I embarrass myself? Or what if I forgot to zip up my pants? Or are people going to laugh at me? And you have that little critic in your head saying all these things can go wrong. The experience of going through that and getting things wrong and surviving has given me the confidence. I can screw up on a stage in front of 1,000 people and it's not going to bother me. It's not going to shake me. And that all comes from ballroom dancing. And by the way, you can get this not just from ballroom dancing, but from other sports or activities, whether it's martial arts or just sports in general, or doing acting or improv. I do a little stand-up comedy now. It's all about being in front of people and screwing up and getting through it. And that's going to help your public speaking.
So it created like an ethos of such that you could then extrapolate into other parts of your life. And so would you give that advice to people like, I know especially like at university, people are trying to learn how to come out of their shell more. And would you say that's where these types of sports play such a big role there?
Absolutely. And really, you hit on a more fundamental learning capability. For
Hmm.
some people, getting better at public speaking, it is about taking formal public speaking training. And that's great, and do it. And obviously, ballroom alone wouldn't have been sufficient. There are other parts to it. But for a lot of what we learned, sometimes if you're just struggling, as you're trying to do it head on, coming at it sideways, coming at it from a different domain, whether it's a different academic discipline or just a different activity in general. It could be sports, it could be some hobby, it could just be reading history and say, oh, here's an interesting insight. In fact, I remember I was also a political science minor. I remember when I was learning political science, we were looking at one particular model for voting, where you had these small groups of people voting, and then they'd come together and the groups would combine, and then the majority would sway it one way or another, and it would scale up. And I had just been learning about the icing model in physics, which is the model for how magnetic materials work. I looked at it and said, oh, wait, this is just the icing model, but applied to voting. It's the same concept.
Mhm.
And in fact, one of the Nobel Prizes, the one in economics that was awarded to Robert Merton, Fisher Black, and Myron Scholes for the Black-Scholes formula that created options, a trillion-dollar industry. Black and Scholes were, from what I understand, they were trying to solve this problem of how do you price options and struggling with it. And they met Bob Merton, who has a background as a physicist. And Bob said, oh, we can use the same formula we use in physics for thermocoupling, for how we transfer heat from one item to another. He applied that to their problem, and it solved it. And they came up with a solution, and then, of course, got the Nobel Prize for it, and also became very rich consulting within finance, because they took an idea from a different discipline and applied it to their area. So I'm a big fan of really kind of paying attention to lots of different areas, whether formally or informally, because that's going to help you learn and understand and grow.
For sure.